We continue with the story of Gideon's family. Gideon has just passed away. He was, there were members of Bnei Israel who wanted him to be king, but he refused. God will lay king for you. And they forgot about him. They forgot about God. There's a vacuum. And that is where we continue with his children, 70 sons, and one who was born to a Pilegesh, to a concubine, away from the rest of the family. And that's what we continue with. Vayelech Avimelech, chapter 9, verse 1. Ben Yerubbaal Shechem. So Avimelech, the son of Yerubbaal, went to Shechem, El Achei Imo, to his mother's brethren. And he spoke to all of his mother's side of his family, right? He's the son of Yerubbaal, but his mother's family is from Shechem, and she was just a Pilegesh to him. And he said to them, what's it better? The 70 sons of Gideon should rule over you, or me, son 71, who also happens to be your family member? And they said, that's a good idea. He's our relative. Let's follow him. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver. Mibeit Baal Brit, from the house of their, sort of sounds like a joint house, Baal Brit. And that was also from an idolatrous house. We had that earlier, Baal Brit, as we talked about. Baal Zvuv is the most famous, Baal Zabah, but Bnei Yisrael worshiping Baal Brit. So they're giving you money from that. And Avimelech, with the 70 pieces of silver, he hires bad men to follow after him, people who have nothing with them. They're empty. They're willing to do whatever you want. And they came to Ophrah, where his father was from, and therefore where the rest of the sons were. They kill all of his brothers. So maybe it was 69, and there was one left, or it's 70, and we're just giving the round number. There's a 71st. That doesn't matter. Everybody is killed at once, with one child remaining, Yotam. Yotam sounds like the word in Hebrew, yatom. Yatom means an orphan. Obviously, his father had already died, and now he's lost sort of the rest of his family. Everybody else has been killed. So he's like a yatom, Yotam. And so all the men of Shechem, they anoint Avimelech as their king. Right, so all those who want to say the first king of Israel is Shaul, well, there seems to be, at least for some of Bnei Israel, a king earlier, Avimelech. And this comes back to something that we said before. I don't know here, does Gideon name his son Avimelech? Gideon, who refused kingship, would he name his son Avimelech, my father was king? Or maybe is that some sort of name that this character who has created a throne through the killing of all of his siblings, is that a name that he sort of adopts for himself, further legitimizing his kingdom by saying, Avimelech, my father was king, and therefore everybody else is dead, so I'm king as well. I don't know. Just a theory. I'm sure I'm not the only person to think it. Continuing verse 7. So Yotam stands on the top of Har Grizim, and he calls out to the people of Shechem. And he tells now a parable. The trees went to anoint a king over them. And they said to the olive tree, reign over us. But the olive tree said, should I leave my fatness, right, my olives, which oil is made out of, that they bring honor to God and man? Then, so it can't be me. So then they go to the fig tree. Come and reign over us. He said, should I leave my sweetness, right? The date syrup, date honey. That's should I leave that in my good fruit, my figs? Should I do that? So therefore, so they go to the vine, to the vineyard. They ask the vines, come and reign over us. And in 13, the Geffen says back them, should I leave my grapes, my wine, which brings joy to God and man, and go and reign over the trees. Vayomru kol eitzim el ha'atad. So all the trees go to the bramble, right? The lowest. It doesn't give anything. Lechatam lachalein. When they say to him, come and reign over us. Vayomru atad el eitzim im be'emet atem moshtim oti lamelech aleichem bo chasu vitzili v'im ayin tetzei eish min ha'atad v'tochel tarzei alavan. If you really want me to be king, then come and take refuge in my shadow. And if not, fire will come out and will devour the cedars of Lebanon. So if he now tells them, what is the parable? If this is truly what you did, that you made Avimelech king, and if you think that this was right, this was the correct behavior to do with our father, with Gidon, with Yerubal, and if this is what is deserving, Ishnal Chama v'alechem, my father fought for you. Vayashlechet nafshomi neged. He's right. He risked his life and delivered you. V'atziletchem miyad midjan. V'atem kamtem al beit avi. And what did you do? You rose up against my father's house hayom. This day, not only today, but it means recently. But targu et banav shivim mishal even achat, and you slaughtered his sons, 70 of them on one stone. The tamlichu et Avimelech ben amato abaleshchem ki achichem hu, and you made the son of his maidservant king over Shechem because he is your brother. Nepotism. And if you think that what you did was right, if you think that's right, enjoy it. Wonderful. But if not, a fire is going to come out from Avimelech. What's going to happen? A fire is going to come forth, and you guys are going to be destroyed. Yotam, after sending out his threat to them, he runs away. And he runs away and he hides because of his brother Avimelech, who he knows has no morals, will have no qualms to kill him. He killed everybody else. Of course, Avimelech will go and kill him as well. So Yotam runs away, and his parable here has been discussed at great length by many. He's talking about a failure of leadership. That they wanted a king so badly, they were willing to ask Gidon. When he refused, eventually they go and they're willing to have as king somebody who is a nothing, somebody who is a bramble, somebody who has no qualities to him. And that's going to cause disaster and destruction. There's interesting, Noga Haruveni, who was a great, he was a botanist. And he was a biblical botanist. And he talks about that this tree, which is mentioned here, is not a bramble, but it's some sort of African tree. I don't remember the genus, the species, exactly what it was called, but it's basically some tree that was imported from Africa that basically strangles the rest of the trees. It destroys them. And that's understanding a little bit more about this metaphor, about this parable, that you pick something that's going to cause your demise, that's going to strangle you completely. It's not just something that's lowly, that doesn't give anything. It's not the vine, it's not the fig tree, it's not the olive tree. You pick something that's going to wrap around you as a parasite and destroy you all. And so here he's blaming multiple people, by the way. He's blaming the people who want a king so much, the Shechemites, for picking such a king. It's not just his brother, his half-brother Avimelech, who he is seeing as problematic. Now, verse 22, let us continue. Vayasar Avimelech Yisrael shlosham shanim. Avimelech remains king over Israel, whether this is all of Israel, a part of Israel, for 3 years. Vayishlach Elohim ruach ra ben Avimelech, and Avimelech was sent by God an evil spirit, uvein Baalei Shechem, and between him and the men of Baalei Shechem. All of a sudden, they are having troubles. They're not getting along in the way that they did in the past. Lavo vayavgedu Baalei Shechem ba'Avimelech, and the people of Shechem dealt treacherously with Avimelech. They're no longer in his corner. Vayishlach lavo chamas shivim b'nei Raval, and this was all done. This was a plan of God because of the 70 men who were 70 sons of Gidon of Yerubal who were killed. V'damam lasum al Avimelech hachem asher aragotam v'al Baalei Shechem asher chizku et yadav la'arog et Avimelech, because God wanted to revenge the blood of these 70 men, both upon Avimelech and onto the people of Shechem, who strengthened him to do so. Now, that doesn't mean they knew he was going to kill all the 70, but obviously he's saying, they're not going to rule over you, I'm going to rule over you. We know that something bad is going to happen. Continuing verse 25. The people of Shechem set liars, sort of traps. And what happens is they're going, and anybody who comes through their mountains, they're robbing, and word got to Avimelech. All of a sudden, a person, Gaal, the son of Eved, along with his family, came to Shechem, and the people of Shechem, they like this guy, and they're going to put him as their leader. They trust him. And they went out into the field, and they gathered the vines, and they stepped on the grapes, and it was festival time. Elohehem, and they went to the house of their God. I don't think that means the God of Israel. Seemingly, it's maybe this Baal Brit that was mentioned before, this idol worship. And they ate and drank, and together with their joy, what are they doing? They're cursing Avimelech. And Gal said, who is Avimelech? Who is Shechem that we should serve him? Halo ben Yuval uzvul pikido. If do it on Sheikh Hamor Avishchemu Madua Navdanu Anachnu. Right? Is he not the son of Ruval, and Zvul is officer? Should we serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem? But why should we serve him? What he's referring to here, Hamor, the rapist of Dinah, who was the son of Shechem, who was the king of those people, and the town was named Shechem. Should we serve him? Should we continue? And he's basically saying these are terrible people. And just as our great-great-great-grandfather a long time ago, Yaakov went and he destroyed the people of Shechem. Maybe that what needs to be done. Excuse me. And if you guys would follow me, I will remove Avimelech. And he sent a message to Avimelech. The people in their drunken stupor or whatever said yes. He said, Avimelech, get all of your soldiers and come out and meet me. And Zvul, who's Avimelech's presumably associate, he gets very angry. And when he hears these words, and he sends messengers to Avimelech, who's not now in Shechem, he's in a different place called Torma, and he says, he says that the Gal ben Evan and his brethren are coming to Shechem, and they are going to fight war against you. So now come out and lie wait in the field, right? To come to a place where you will be able to sneak up on them and destroy them. Similar, right? If we think back, Gideon used was commanded by God to do so, but he attacked at night. And it was done in secrecy, right? He only had 300 men, and somehow he managed to destroy an army that was over 100,000 men through using trickery. And so, verse 34, they have 4 companies, and they are ready there by Shechem. So Gal ben Evid comes out, and he's at the gates of the city, and Avimelech and his men come out from their ambush. And Gal sees all the people. Vayomer el Zvul, Hine am yored meiroshe harim. Vayomer el Zvul, etzel heharim ataro eka anashim. He says to Zvul, the men are coming down from the mountaintops, meaning, look how many men are coming to destroy you. But Zvul says to him, you see the shadow of the mountains as if they were men, right? You think that they're on your side, but they're not. Vayosef od Gal lidaber vayomer, Hine am yordim. Me'im tabor haaretz v'rosh echad bami derech elon me'onanim. And God said again, see, they're coming down from the middle of the land. One company from this place, elon me'onanim. Vayomer lev Zvul, aye efo picha sher tomar. What are you saying? Mi Avimelech ki na'evdanu. Why did you have the chutzpah to say, who is Avimelech that we are going to follow him, that we're going to serve him? Halozeh ha'am asher ma'astabo. These are the people that you despise. Go now and fight them. And Gal hears this and realizes that these are not people who are on his side, but he goes out and he wages war, and he is victorious. Verse 40, and Avimelech and his men are defeated. Vayeshev Avimelech ba'aruma vaygaresh shvul gal et bet achav mishevet b'Shechem. And Avimelech, he has to run all the way to Aruma to be hidden, and Zvul was driven out, and they are in Shechem. On the next day, the people come out, and they're told what happens. So Avimelech is told what's going on, and he's coming out to wage war. He's coming out of his hiding, and their people are rushing forward, and they're standing at the entrance of the gates. And Avimelech is once again successful in battle. So it seemed like he was losing. He had to run away. He had to, it seemed like things weren't going to go well for him. And now Avimelech is once again capturing cities. He is once again in charge. And so now the people of Shechem hear about it. So now Avimelech hears that there are other people who are now gathering up against him. Avimelech then goes, we're told in verse 48, for the sake of time, just talking in the English, he goes to Hart Salmon. Sounds a lot like Salmoa. It sounds like the generals of the army that were defeated by Gidon in the last chapters, and all the people are with him, and he takes an axe in his hand, and he cuts down trees, and he starts to make like a ladder, and he starts to say, cut down the trees so we'll be able to defeat the enemy. And the people do likewise, and they're cutting down trees, and they're getting ready, trying to destroy the tower of Shechem. Verse 50, Vayelech Avimelech el Tevetz, Vayichan b'Tevetz v'al Kidan. And Avimelech is in Tevetz, and he's encamping against the people of Tevetz, and he takes the people of Tevetz after he's destroyed Shechem. Umigdal Oz haytabatoch here, and again there's a tower in Shechem. Now there's a tower again in Tevetz. All the people, to save themselves from Avimelech, who looked like he was being defeated, and now he's on a rampage and he's killing everybody, and now he's in this town of Tevetz. And so all the people run into the tower to try to hide themselves. And they go up to the top of the tower. Verse 52, and Avimelech comes to the tower and fights against it. And he's about to, what does he want to do? He's going to burn down the tower. And then verse 53, Vatashlech Isha Achat Pelech Rechev Arosh Avimelech Vataritz at Gulgalto. And a woman, she drops this heavy millstone from the tower, and what do you know? What luck? It falls right on the head of Avimelech, and it crushes his skull. It doesn't crush it completely, because he calls his soldiers, and something that we'll see, a foreshadowing of what's going to happen in the life of the person who's usually considered the first king of Israel. He says, draw your sword and kill me, to his arms bearer, he says, because I don't want to say that I was killed by a woman. Avimelech is dead, and finally the land is at peace. And thus God avenged the wickedness of Avimelech, which he did to his father's children for slaying the 70 brothers. So Avimelech, who it seemed was losing and destroys his own people of Shechem, and then he goes on a rampage against everybody. He's against him, and he's attacking everybody. Ultimately, he is that fire. He is that tree that is crushing them, that is defeating those who came up in front of him. And what we see in this chapter, and there's a lot that's been written about it, is a real lack of leadership. And sometimes a lack of leadership is okay, but oftentimes when there's a lack of leadership, the person who comes in is somebody who is a terrible person, somebody who is not there to help the people, but only to help themselves. And that's who Avimelech is from the get-go. I'm going to help you if you help me. They make a deal with the devil, and ultimately it burns them down. And as this is a number of stories that we've had recently where we're starting to see a real downward slope here in the book of Judges. It starts in a sense, although this is not going to sound so politically correct, it starts in a sense when Devorah says to Barak, come and fight with me. And Barak says, I won't do it unless you're there. That wasn't done out of respect for Devorah. That was at a time when men were leaders. What the book is saying is there are no men who are standing up. And therefore, women are taking the lead role. The glory will be through Yael, not through Barak. And in this story as well, we have no leaders. We have nobody who's in charge. And this man, maybe that was a mistake of Gidon. Maybe it was a mistake of Rubal. Maybe he should have taken the throne. Eventually, his son takes this terrible throne and causes much destruction. And again, there's nobody who's standing up to him who's a proper person. And again, what this book is saying, and again, this is not a comment on our day where we have great women leaders, and it should be that way. But at that time, if a woman is the one who kills him, it's showing a lack of leadership amongst Bnei Israel in the same way Barak showed a lack of leadership. Thank God the world has changed today. We no longer are in that situation, but that's what part of what this book of Shoftim is about. We have these Shoftim, we have these judges, they're tribal leaders. None of them are great leaders. Devorah was a great person, but she was in charge because nobody else was. It's, again, not a comment in the 21st century. It's a comment about the past. And here we have this terrible leader leading ultimately to the destruction and demise and killing of cities and of many members of Bnei Israel. You make a deal with the devil, Yotam says, eventually you will be burned.